All right, you guys, got a really good lesson, I think, for you this morning. This is something that's been brewing for a while. It's really stemmed out of a lot of research that I've been doing into my tactics course that I might be rolling out in a few months' time. So the topic of this is, it's something that I notice again and again and again when I'm playing against lower rated players or tutoring. And I think it's a really key lesson to learn if you are sub 1000, maybe sub 1200, and it's to do with the initiative, particularly in the opening phase of the game. A lot of beginners will play unnecessary moves and give away the initiative. I mean, clearly when you're playing with black, one of your early goals, if you can achieve it, is to gain tempo. So force white to waste a move, say retreating a piece, giving you then the initiative, right? So you get the control. You then become essentially the player with the white pieces. Okay, so I think a lot of less experienced players will just treat the opening moves as though they don't really matter. But they really, really do matter, because you can get the initiative, you can maintain the initiative, you can get control over the board right in the first few moves. And I've got about 20 examples to share with you, all from my research, all from my own games that I've played on chess.com over the last 3 years. Okay, so I think without any further ado, let's just dive in. And I'll explain what I mean as I go, and you'll see the difference. Okay, so here, my opponent's rated in the 900 to 1000 rating, okay, and I play the Scandinavian Defense. This is like a 10+5 game, and immediately, this is one of the most basic errors that you will find that beginners make. When there is a pawn on the 4th rank, I mean, obviously I'm black here, so technically it's the 5th rank on the board. Right, you don't want to move a knight, you don't want to develop a knight straight into the path of that pawn, because now, pawn to d4, the knight is now under attack, and the knight must now move. Okay, the worst place to go is actually here. Okay, because we've seen that. But usually when there's already a pawn there, and here you see the knight has to move for a second time. Now suddenly, after white had already moved the e-pawn, freeing up the light squared bishop and the queen, now he's plugged that hole again with his stupid knight, and now he's going to be he's going to have a lot of trouble. Okay, so don't do that. So what I want this to do is I want it to kind of percolate through, so that you get this feeling that these opening moves really, really do bloody matter. Okay, here my opponent's just under 1400, I've got the white pieces, and he starts, this is the Nimzovich defense, and I push d4, okay, grabbing the center. We have e5, and now I simply push forward and harass the knight again. Classic opening knight trap. This is what I just described. When you've got the 3 pawns here, do not stick your knight on there, because whichever way around it is, this knight now has nowhere to go. I've done a whole video on this. You don't need to go over it in detail, but every square that the knight could go to, it's going to pay with its life. Okay, so we have the queen just flying out here, grab the knight, check, and life is good. Okay, so don't ever do that. I know it's tempting to want to put your knight in the middle of the board, but this is a pattern. You've just got to know it. Don't ever, ever stick your knight in there when you've got these 3 pawns. Don't ever complete the central square with your knight. Okay, next one. All right, so this is like an exception to the opening knight trap. I think you'll find this interesting. Okay, so I'm playing the Piet's defense, probably black lion. Is the idea. So again, white grabs the center. Now, this is interesting, because when you play the pits, you play this, if e4 is played, you play d6 for exactly this reason, okay? It's to prevent e5, kicking your knight, okay? That's why these openings have their traditional lines, have their book theory, all that kind of stuff, right? d6 is important to prevent this move, okay? White here is 1400 player, pushes e5 anyway, okay? And now look, this is not an opening knight trap, okay? For one thing, my pawn isn't here, Okay, so then it would be. But look, d takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes queen, white has lost castling rights. Okay, white has not only lost castling rights, but black has one piece out on the board. So somebody asked me about this the other day, just to reiterate. There is a handy method that my chess coach explained to me just a few weeks ago for keeping track or keeping score of your development. So basically, this is what it is, right? Count how many pieces, i.e. not pawns, pieces, you have off the back rank, okay? And they're worth 1 point each, okay? And if you have castled your king, give yourself 2 points. All right, do the same for your opponent. So this is a way of keeping track of who is actually ahead in development. And why is development important? Because the more pieces you have out in the board, I mean, all right, when this knight was here, for example, it was looking at 1, 2, 3 squares, controlling 3 squares from the edge of the board, okay? If a knight's in the corner, it controls only 2 squares, but from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares, right? That's the difference. The more pieces that you have developed out in the board, the more of the board that you control. And that means the fewer options your opponent has, and the more options you have more safe squares. You have more covered squares, protected squares, and so on and so forth. Okay, so here, it's 1-0. Black is ahead in development, and what's more, white is unable to castle, and so is going to be, that's 2 development score points that they're not going to be able to claim. And of course, the f2 pawn here is already vulnerable, so this knight could move either here or here and attack that pawn with a potential fork. Not good for white, not a good way to start with 30 minutes on your clock. Okay, and the knight does indeed come in, and bishop has to react by defending this pawn here. And you can see, I mean, this is not the ideal square for that bishop, really. You know, bishops in this part of the board here don't tend to be very useful. I mean, they can defend pawns, but in terms of attacking, they're shooting at the sides of the board, and it's just not ideal. Okay, next example. All right, so bringing your queen out into the board very early. Okay, so this is move 9. White has moved their queen out to f3. And nobody's castled yet, we're still in the opening. And now black has the opportunity to play bishop b7, hit the queen. Queen moves across, knight g4 hits the queen, okay? So you can see, at this point in time, both players have a queen and a knight out in the board, so it's 2-2, okay? But now it's 3-2, because the queen now has to move, okay? Now the knight comes in, is attacking the queen again, maybe also looking at that pawn at some point. Queen moves again, we trade queens, and for some reason here, white decides to recapture with the c pawn instead of the light squared bishop. I can't come up with a reason. Well, I suppose black's got a bishop looking at that pawn as well. But this is definitely weakening. You know, it all came from the fact that white had brought their queen out into the board pretty early. Okay. Here's another one. Let's take this one from the start, okay? 1100 opponent, and I play here the Sicilian, which is interesting. This is quite a while ago. This is a 10-minute game, and I'm rated under 1100 here. And the queen comes flying out too early, right? Simple. d6, right? Hit to the queen. Queen she have move, right? Off she goes. Now e5, hit the queen again, okay? Now I haven't got a lead in development here, but I've got a significant lead in terms of control of the board, having developed some pawns, and now knight can come out, and now I'm ahead in development, right? So don't be throwing that queen out in the board unless you know what you are going to do with it. I mean, is it beyond the realms of possibility for white to say, okay, if I put my queen there, I mean, I don't even know what white's thinking here, right? If I put my queen there, let's just move the queen and hover. Is there anything stupid about it? Can black just kick my queen very easily? Oh yeah, d6, kick the queen. It's not difficult. Next one. Alright, so now, again, both sides haven't castled. This is move 5. And at this point, white now just throws in a pointless check. I've got several examples of this. It's so common. Okay, pointless check. Black plays e7. Okay, bishop e7. Now, if bishop takes bishop, black could recapture with the queen, could recapture with a knight, and is now ready to castle on the next turn. Okay, so what was the point of this? This isn't actually a check, this is an attack on the queen, right? But same deal. Okay, what's the point of this move? And now suddenly white is the one that's on the back foot, because if bishop takes, can't recapture with the knight because queen takes. So now white is the one with a problem, and it's all of his own making, or my own making, right? So the bishop retreats, okay? And now white has lost the initiative. Look, 2 pieces out in the board, 2 pieces out in the board, but it's black's turn. That means that the table has turned. Black is now effectively in the position of the player with the white pieces. Okay, here's another one. Move 3 of the game. Black throws out a bishop for no reason whatsoever. You know, it's a check, but you've got to say, okay, well, look, if my opponent plays bishop d2 to block the check, what am I going to do? I think I'll just retreat all the way back to e7. Okay, so all that has done, we've effectively, let's replay it, okay, from the start. So, this point in time, black has a development lead. Okay, black has 1 piece out in the board, right? Bishop comes out, 2-0 to black, okay? Bishop comes out, 2-1. Bishop retreats, 2-1. And it's white's go, but white has this nice pawn structure and good central control, okay? So the knight can come out here, bishop out here, you know. Black has lost, it's just simply given away, just burned a move. And these early moves in the game, you know that the higher rated players seem to focus a lot on openings and theory, whereas lower rated players sometimes just go, I just want to kind of get my piece out into the board and then we can fight, right? But the fighting can start very early on. You can lose the arm wrestle in the first few moves. Next example. Okay, we've had 2 moves so far, and now white does it. Pointless check, bishop blocks, move it again. So you've just invited black to develop a piece completely for free. Because white could have played that move on the previous move, right? But now, look at this bishop. It was here, where it was looking at that pawn, okay? So all it had was this diagonal, right? Now, from here, it's got this diagonal, and it's got this diagonal. So the bishop is better. And white invited, just gifted that to black. All right, here's another one. From the start, okay? This is not a long game. This is, again, when I'm rated under 1100, so I play the Scandinavian, and a completely pointless check. Right? What's the point in that? c6, bishop has to retreat. So white has just said to black, please defend your pawn. Please add another defender to your pawn, and I'll just move my bishop around the board a bit, right? And now black develops, and it's pretty equal. Okay, white's lost his initiative. Okay, here we are both 1100, and we have a Philidor. Okay, bishop comes flying out, pinning the knight. Okay, again, there's nothing wrong with pinning the knight. Okay, it's a move that you play very frequently. It's played at every single level. This is nothing. There is nothing wrong with this move per se, but you have to have an idea. Okay, if I do this, you don't think, oh, that's a move. Now we can stop thinking, hooray, right? If my opponent blocks with e2, what am I going to do? Am I just going to slide my bishop away, right? What is black thinking with that move? So it doesn't take, you don't have to be Magnus Carlsen or Einstein to say, okay, well, if I pin the knight, then bishop blocks the pin is trivial. I mean, it's been played millions of times. Bishop blocks. I think I'll just move again, right? And now, white already has 3 pieces out in the board to black's 1. Okay, so black has just taken a step back in the chess game already. We're on move 5. Okay, so here's another one from the start. Okay, e4, e5, knight to f3, and queen out to f6. This is a called the McConnell Defense. It's a bit of an odd one. And white plays d3. We have h6, and now the knight comes out to c3. Okay, with the king behind it. Now, black now plays bishop to b4. Again, pinning the knight. Okay. And white plays bishop d2, blocking the pin. Okay. Now, what is the plan? You should expect this move to come. Right? You're inviting your opponent to develop their bishop for free. Okay. Now we take and we take. Okay. Now look at this. White has two pieces out on the board. Okay. So white has the lead in development. Also now has two pieces looking at this pawn. Also, you have to notice white's got a light squared pawn chain already starting to build up, right? And what that means is that their light squared bishop is going to be somewhat compromised, but their dark squared bishop has the freedom of the city, okay? Can move all the way around through, dance through these pawns. Now what black has done in this situation is say, I think I might swap off my good bishop, my good dark squared bishop that's already developed. I'm going to invest another move just to get rid of it. Okay, so look here, right? Here, we have one piece out on the board to two pieces. Okay, black develops a second piece. Great, 2-all. 3-2 to white. 2-1 to white. The black has gained absolutely nothing in that exchange. Next one. Okay, we're on move 4. And pointless check again. c3, right? It closes off this diagonal, right? It opens up a new diagonal for the queen, which she didn't have before. Because look at this situation. This queen is not good. This queen has got a choice of 3 squares that she could move to, right? But now, oh look, in addition to those squares, the queen also has 3 more, okay? Plus the bishop has to move back, okay? Giving away the initiative, right? Always have a plan for what you're going to do on the next move, right? Don't just play a move completely isolated. Okay, we're on move 5 of the game here. Black's just played knight to f6, and we have a bishop development. I mean, this kind of looks relatively sensible. But the bishop just drops back here, and now white moves their bishop yet again. So, you know, what the idea was with this, I'm not sure. You know, if you weren't going to capture the bishop, I don't know. It's a 1500 player too. Okay, bishop now moves for a second time, and now c6 is pushed. Okay, and the bishop moves back. And now black actually has the advantage. White's just moved their bishop 3 times in 3 moves. Okay, why? And now black has 4 pieces out on the board to white's 3. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is from the Scotch Gambit. Okay, so e4, e5, knight's out, and d4, black takes, and then bishop to c4. All right. Oh, look, a pointless check with the bishop. You've seen this before. c3 blocks. Now, the difference here is that black does have the pawn there on d4. Takes, takes. Okay, the pawn's defended by the knight. Bishop has to retreat. Nothing gained. Okay, nothing gained. Right, here we go, another one. Are you ready for this? Can you find black's next pointless move? Okay, in fact, white's next pointless move. Okay, bishop b5 check, bishop blocks. What was the plan? Retreat. Okay, just silly. Black could have equally done a similar thing here. All right, just don't do this. Don't give away initiative straight at the beginning of the game. Okay, just stop that. Stop it. Right, now this is interesting. Okay, so black has just played their knight out to here. Maybe looking at that pawn, but it is defended twice by bishop and then queen. Okay, so white now pushes f3 to kick the knight. Okay, knight takes bishop, queen takes. Okay, now, so it's slightly deeper into the game here. Both sides have castles. We are in the middle game. Now black goes, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. look at me, I've got a pin, right? Bishop there, pinning the queen against the king. But no, because f4, right? And now the bishop just has to retreat. So all that's happened is black has said, I'll tell you what, I'll just burn 2 turns, right? And I'll let you slightly improve your pawn, okay? So now it's creating a platform, it's just helping white to storm up the board with these pawns and go on to invade black's position, with 8 minutes left on the clock. Okay, here's another one. This comes from the Vienna Gambit. Wow, I played it when it was 12:48, so... Okay, didn't even know I knew the Vienna Gambit. Okay, queens can be just as guilty as bishops, right? Queen a5 check just invites. It says, please play bishop d2 and kick my queen away. The queen goes all the way back, buggers off all the way back to d8, and absolutely nothing has been achieved whatsoever. There was a move that had no point to it. Every move should have a point to it. Okay, this one's interesting. This is from the Barnes opening. Okay, so e4, d5, Scandinavian, and then f3. So I guess if pawn takes, the plan is pawn recaptures, but then we've really opened things up around the king. Unusual opening, don't see it very often. Okay, black plays e5, and we have d4 now by white. And now look, black just plays queen h4, check. Why? Because it's inviting g3, and then the queen has to move again, right? Pointless. Totally pointless. And then pawn takes, and there's no queen there to recapture, because the queen's off on her jollies over here, getting kicked around the board. Alright? Just silly. Alright. Have you had enough pointless checks with the queen yet? Because we've got another one. Okay, here we go. Sicilian, both players 1400. This is the Snyder variation. Okay, bishop comes to b2. And we have this, and look, out flies the queen, banners flying, just saying, please play g3, kick me away, block up the diagonal towards the king, right, and defend this pawn at the same time. Thank you very much, I'll just drop the queen all the way back. It is not, I know you can calculate this, right? If you're considering playing queen h4 check, okay, I wonder what my opponent is going to play if I do this move, right? g3. It's like, white wants to play g3 anyway, to defend this pawn. And then go ahead and castle long. Crazy stuff. Okay, just got a handful more to go through. This is a curious one. So again, we're in the beginning, in the opening. White here is played under, is rated under 900. So this is kind of understandable, but not forgivable. Bishop to e3. The first thing you have to say is, okay, let's evaluate the threat. Okay, the threat is maybe that, right? But on its own, king takes bishop, that's not an issue, right? So what I would play probably here as white is think about maybe develop this bishop, okay? And then if black wants to double up and put their queen behind the bishop to attack f2, simply castle, right? And you castle, if bishop takes, you grab it with a rook, and then black's just thrown away a piece, okay? Evaluating the threat is very, very important to say, okay, well look, the bishop is looking at my pawn. Are you looking at my pawn? Right? This is pointless because now bishop takes, f takes is the only possibility, and what have we done? We've got doubled and isolated pawns on the f-file, right? We've got an open diagonal towards the king here, okay? Giving the queen the freedom of this whole rank as well, There was just no point to it, okay? With 10 minutes on the clock, you don't need to play just throwing out pointless moves at this point in the game. So we have queen b6 here, queen comes to there, now queen grabs b2, and white here resigns. Okay, on move 9. Next one. Careful with your F pawn, boys and girls. Okay, e4, e5, d4, centre game. The Danish Gambit is on the board, everybody. And now d5. Okay, this is fairly common. So here I advance e5, and for some reason, black decides to push the F pawn. Okay, now I've said it so many times. Grandmaster Ben Feingold says that the F pawn, the F stands for forget about it. This is the forget about it pawn. Do not push that pawn without an exceptionally good reason. Okay, so the pawn is pushed here. Now, white then takes on d4 because it's a free capture. Okay, so we've now got equal material. And now pawn takes. So the f pawn is taken, but the reason why the f pawn matters is because it was blocking f2. So it was blocking this diagonal towards the king, right? So now we have queen h5 check. And what's black got? How can black get out of check? Well, there's only two things I think that black can do. This bishop can't block, this knight can't block, right? It's on the wrong colours. So the only two things are the king could run away to d7 or e7, or we play g6. And here black plays g6, queen takes e5. It's like the wayward queen attack with a fork on king and rook, and you can imagine how the rest of the game panned out. You know, it's just absolutely unnecessary. This is not a threat. Okay, so here black could capture on there. Yeah, maybe invite the knight to recapture would be okay, but this move from a 1299 rated player, it's just you're asking for trouble. So hands off the f pawn, because it can be so dangerous. Okay, last few. Now here white captures. So white here is castled, black hasn't castled. White captures a bishop, pawn recaptures, and now we have bishop g5. Okay, it's a second attacker on this knight, but the knight's actually defended twice anyway. And again, it just invites f6, kicking the bishop away. Bishop now retreats. So what was the point? What was the point? You know, this is the more mobile bishop, right, that white has. And just inviting this just removes a square, another square where that bishop can't land. Okay, just think it through, guys. Yeah, what's the point of that move? If I play that move, what is my opponent going to do? Well, they're going to push that pawn, and then in a minute they're going to castle long. Right? It's not too difficult. Okay, there you go. Right, last couple. Okay, my opponent here is rated under 700, so they start with d4, and I play e5. This is the England Gambit. And now g3, captures, develops the knight. Okay. And now I play out my bishop to defend the pawn. Slightly pointless, seeing as it is actually attacked twice and only defended once. So maybe not. I think probably knight c6 might have been a better move at this point, even though, you know, it still doesn't actually defend a pawn. But this is just weird. b4, right? A, the bishop can't actually defend that pawn anyway. B, it's not any kind of threat. And then just what's the point of this? Because it's moving it to an undefended position. Bishop captures with check. White has to respond. And now, I mean, this is actually a blunder. I played a blunder here. Lost the piece. Okay. And here again, pointless attack by the bishop. What am I going to do? Of course, it's f6. Okay. And this knight is undefended. Okay. Bishop retreats. I grab the knight. Check with a fork on the king and the rook. Yeah, so just a weird one, that one, eh? Okay, final example. Passive play. e4, e5, fair enough. Knight to f3, knight to c6, fair enough. d4, the Scotch. f6 is an odd one, you know. It's the f pawn again, and just see the issues. One issue, it's opened up this diagonal. Okay, another one, it's taken away a natural development square from the king's knight. Another issue is that it's blocking in the queen. Okay? And now, of course, d5. So we're going full circle. Back to this, leaving your knight in a position where a pawn advance, gaining space, can kick the knight, and now suddenly, with this passive play, black is completely on the back foot. Okay, so there you go, a whole range of examples of how to give away the initiative, most of them in the opening phase of the game. So don't treat the opening moves as though they don't matter. They do matter. And we've seen so many examples where by just playing unthinking moves or just not taking the time and the effort to say, okay, if I do that, what is my opponent going to do? If I do that, am I going to get a lead in development, or is my opponent going to get a lead in development, right? If I do that and my opponent plays the most natural thing, like blocking, breaking the pin with the bishop or kicking with a pawn, what am I going to do? What's the plan? Right? Don't just think one move at a time, because you will remain under 1,000. If you think about one move at a time, you are playing in the under 1,000 category. And if you want to get beyond that, you're going to have to start saying, okay, if I do that, what are they going to do? Then what do I do? Okay, and that is how to expand your chess thinking. That is how you will improve. Okay, so I hope that's been useful for you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Chess Bootcamp if you haven't subscribed, and I will see you soon.